So coming to Savarkar, as you know, someone who has read very extensively about Savarkar, wrote a two-volume biography of Savarkar. What, in your view, if you have to describe Savarkar briefly as a person and as a freedom fighter, how would you describe Savarkar?
Very, very complex, at the same time, very enigmatic and a very interesting figure who means many things to many people simultaneously. But the facts of history, which are cold and straightforward, are that he was someone who organized India's first ever organized secret society, Mela, which later became the Abhinav Bharat, who organized the first ever bonfire of foreign clothes in India while he was a student at Ferguson College in Pune. Led the movement for Indian independence, a firebrand revolutionary while he was in London in the 5 years that he was at the India House there, and several other wonderful characters who were with him there. Shamji Krishna Verma, Madam Bhikaji Kama, Madan Lal Dhingra, MPT Acharya, BVS Iyer, Senapati Bapat, Lala Hardayal, who later formed the Gadar party, Sikandar Khan, several others who were with him there. Someone who wrote the first, a magnum opus on the 1857 revolution. Later became veritably the Bhagavad Gita for all the revolutionaries who came, after him, whether it was Bhagat Singh who published it, or Subhash Chandra Bose and Rash Bihari Bose who got it translated and published. So his contribution that way to the intellectual corpus of the revolutionary movement, what it meant, was very important. Someone who also suffered the worst of inhuman tragedies after being as a D category criminal, sent away to Kalapani for 14 years that he endured there, 12 years in Kalapani and 2 in the Indian, mainland. Terrible, terrible inhuman tortures there, after which, he was conditionally released that he would not participate in politics for 5 years and also stay confined to Ratnagiri for that time of period. But the British really did not trust him, and that's why those 5 years kept getting extended, and 2 years extra, and then it finally became 13 years. So here was a man who went to London to train as a lawyer, who's 14 years in hardcore jail and 13 years on house arrest in Ratnagiri. 20 someone's life was just snuffed out like that. But in Ratnagiri, he launched the entire social reform movement, a complete eradication of the caste system, about which we know so little. Intercaste marriage, intercaste dining, the first intercaste cafe where people of all castes sit together and eat, the Patit Pavan Mandir in Ratnagiri in 1931, where all people of all castes could go and worship, and the propounder of Hindutva, which he wrote in jail in 1923, in the backdrop of the Khilafat movement, and putting that entire Hindutva ideology into practice in Ratnagiri by unifying the Hindu society. Later on, of course, after coming out in 1937, the joining of the Hindu Mahasabha as its president and making it a electorally fighting fit organization against the Muslim League, against the Congress. But had his failures at that time, as I mentioned in the earlier answer, and also, went on to be implicated in the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, of which he was, of course, acquitted honorably. So, but then that albatross stuck on his neck, and he died quite disillusioned, committed his own death, so to say, by eating and drinking and taking medicines in 1966. But alongside a very, very sensitive poet, a contradiction of sorts, a fiery revolutionary who had also the sensitive heart of a poet, who could see the ocean and then burst out into a poem, who could see everything around him, nature and so on, and actually put those down in poetry, etch poems and verses on the walls of the cellular jail, with his nails and with charcoal and so on. A prolific writer, a journalist, an amateur historian of sorts, a playwright. So very, very multifaceted. That's why I said very complex, multifaceted personality who meant many things to many people at the same time. At the same time, a political ideologue whose Hindutva, of course, metamorphosed into numerous versions, and it is in the political ascent today all over. And that's where his relevance also comes into picture. So I think that long answer to your very short question of telling Savarkar in brief. I think when you talk of Savarkar, you can never be brief.
You can never be brief, of course. As you rightly said, it means many things to many people. But one very important aspect about Savarkar, which I think I would say most of the people would not be aware of before your book came out, is his work towards caste eradication, the caste system eradication. And he did a lot for the welfare of the Dalits and, making sure that now we talk about Bhimrao Ambedkar ji and we rightly credit him for, doing so much for the Dalits and the backward caste. We have Babu Jagjeevan Ram and all, whom people know that they work for the welfare of Dalits. But unfortunately, I realized after reading the book that Veer Savarkar also did a lot for the Dalit upliftment. And sadly, he's not mentioned when we talk of the struggle of the Dalits and the lower caste. He's completely forgotten, as if he did not do anything. He was not at all linked to any of this. And Bhimrao Ambedkar ji and Savarkar's viewpoints actually converged on the welfare of Dalits. They both are concerned about that. They both wanted the caste system to be kind of, eradicated. And they both were against many, viewpoints or actions of Mahatma Gandhi, which they mentioned, and as you mentioned in detail in your book.